So I think it might have actually been since December last year was the last time we did this series. Like, it might have been almost a full calendar year since we last filmed for this series on and off the shelf. Like, it has been a long time. And I feel really bad about that because I remember you saying you were interested in continuing. And we said we were going to go back to it. And then I got caught up in doing a bunch of other stuff. Like, we had a bunch of other videos we wanted to do. And then I started on my, like, villainess reincarnation kick. And even beyond that, we just never got back to it. And I can't quite remember why I never felt the need to get back to it, especially considering I do really like this series. But we are back with, technically Volume 2 of Fruits Basket. In reality, it is Volume 2 of the Collector's Edition, which means it's Chapter 13 through 24 in this book.
Usually that ends up meaning it's like 3 volumes or so.
No, like 2.
2?
Most manga are 6 to 10 chapters per volume. This is 12, so it's probably like 2 volumes. But yeah, so
that can differ though, especially when you're talking monthly versus weekly. I think weekly you are right on that, but if you're monthly, the chapters tend to be longer.
Okay, but Knick-Knack, I actually have some Fruits Basket volumes.
No. I believe you in this case for sure. Okay, for sure, I believe you in this case. I'm just saying, just in general, that might not always hold true.
Okay, because One Piece does 10 to 12 chapters per volume. Yeah. But yeah, so this should be about 2 volumes of manga. Because the volumes were pretty thick for the original. I don't have the original manga release of Fruits Basket. It's not sold in the U.S. It was originally published under a publisher that went out of business in the early 2000s. And Yen Press picked the rights back up about 5 or 6 years ago, and they released these collector's edition volumes instead of the normal volumes, which isn't terrible. I have all of them, so we have
collector's editions are really nice. I've been getting in on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I have them for a couple series, namely I have them for Hanakimi, Fruits Basket, and I have the ones for Fairy Tail, but they never made another one after number 5. Which I'm very disappointed about, because I really liked the Fruits Basket Collector's Editions. Sorry, the Fairy Tail Collector's Editions. They were my favorite. And so I'm really disappointed they didn't continue them. But with that being said, we read more of Fruits Basket. And the important things to note in this volume are Hatsuharu is introduced immediately, the cow. And then the bunny, Momiji. We meet Akito, and Haruhi has... No.
Seki quickly checking her chapters.
No. The chapters are not what I'm checking. And anyone who's watching this, and Toru, not Haruhi.
Oh, Jesus, fuck. I didn't even catch that.
Akito has his first interactions with Toru.
You don't even like Haruhi Suzumiya, don't you? Is that?
Haruhi from Oran High School Host Club.
Oh.
That's who I was thinking of.
Oh. So that makes more sense.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Haruhi Suzumiya, it was Haruhi Fujioka. But no, this is Toru Honda.
When they blend for you, that's a bad sign.
Oh, it really is. They're not even all that similar. Like, Toru and Haruhi are very different characters, despite being the main female lead in what's essentially a harem anime. So we meet Akito, and then we meet Ayame, Yuki's older brother. So that kind of completes a lot of our main cast, like, that's going to be recurring constantly. I think Kagura is maybe the only one who we haven't met yet. We meet the nervous bathhouse lady. Love her.
Oh yeah.
I love her. Also, the return of Shigure's editor, who is constantly bereaved, harassed, and disappointed by Shigure. I said Haruhi's editor, it was Shigure. Now I'm thinking of Haruhi, and that's not going to go away. Oh, yeah, and we got to see her two friends dress up to go visit her mother's grave with her. And, in like one of them in the gang outfit, and the other one in her little mourning outfit. So a lot of stuff happens in Volume 2. Like, this was a very full volume of meeting new characters. We'd already met Kyo, Yuki, Shigure, and the Seahorse Doctor, who I can't remember the name of at the moment. Hari. I remember his name now. After saying I didn't remember it. So we've almost basically doubled our cast in terms of who we've met. We've met a bunch more of the Zodiacs. There's some very notable funny moments, like the moment with the editor. I also particularly like the school body president decides. So Hatsuharu, the cow, has like white on top of his hair and black on the bottom, and he's like, "You can't have bleached hair. That's against the dress code." And he's like, "It's not bleached." And he's like, "Yeah, how can you prove that?" And then they go into the men's bathroom, and then he comes out changed. For he has been shown proof that this man has black and white hair. I will leave that to all of you to imagine how he proved that. Yeah, you don't need to make the motion. So, what's up? No.
So this might be a factor of it's been a while since I've had the chance to read this.
I mean,
but even in the moment I remember it, a lot of this is kind of blurring together for me. I think I'm having trouble sort of separating this from... Because I've touched a little bit on other reverse harem anime. I'm having trouble separating this from the other ones, and I feel like there has to be something I'm missing here.
Yeah, because when you read the first book, you were really positive about it. Like, we had a really good discussion. We talked about the art and stuff.
It's been years. So I don't want to, go back on anything I said back then, but, my vague memories were more on the lines of I'm seeing things that they could do that could be very interesting going forward, and I don't... Maybe I'm just... Again, it might also be that year from the first book, but, nothing's really catching me here.
Oh, also, we did meet Kagura the boar.
Okay.
Well, I will say, this volume doesn't So, this volume, outside of her encounter with Akito, which really not much happens, other than a shocking look into Yuki's home life with Akito when he was younger, which is horrifying. That actually doesn't advance the plot much at all. This is literally just a series of chapters introducing us to more Zodiac members, one after another, because we meet Hatsuharu, and then we meet Momiji, and then we meet Kagura, and then we meet the bathhouse lady, and then we meet Ayame. So, we met 4 characters in the first 2 volumes, all of which were very integral to the story, but we've just been introduced to 5 more very quickly.
Yeah. I think, and that also might be a factor here, is that we're still just being introduced to characters. But for me, it's got an interesting premise, but for me it feels more like an excuse for reverse harem antics, as opposed to it's actually doing something with its premise. And that might just be because we're only still being introduced to characters.
I will say, though, speaking towards it as a reverse harem, other than, Shigure constantly harassing his editor and Hatsuharu being really good at flirting, there's no overt,
I want to be clear, this is not as overt of a reverse harem as something like Villainess, where I could go in and say, this... I'm not going in and saying it's got the problem of, all the characters have to be in every single chapter. It does not have those problems. Yeah. There is some meat here. It's meatier than Villainess.
Yeah, it's also not as outwardly love-centric at the moment. You can certainly see it developing, but, Momiji isn't the bunny boy isn't. Hatsuharu is a flirt to everyone, apparently. Ayame is not in it for her. Shigure is not in it for her. Hattori is not in it for her. They're adult men. So, I mean, the main crux of the romance is still really just between Kyo, Yuki, and Toru.
I thought my problem here is that there doesn't seem to be much direction.
And maybe that's because this was mostly just character introductions.
Yeah. Where, like, I don't need, like, I'm obviously not saying this should be an action series. This should not be an action series. But I need, like, either, like, an element of intrigue to really jump on, or an element of drama, or something to spice up the status quo a little bit. But I think that's because their status quo spice up right now are more characters, and I just don't think the characters individually are clicking with me in the same way. I don't know. I
think we got a hint of that with Akito.
Yeah.
Because we did have that really impactful interaction at the school festival with Akito, and him basically threatening Yuki. But there's so little of it hinted this early. Like,
I guess I want to give you the chance here, because I don't want to, like, sit here and be like, this series is mixed. I know this series has its fans. I know this series is really well beloved.
Oh yeah, it literally got a full remake just 2 years ago.
This is a reverse harem slice of life adjacent.
So I'm going to be honest.
Series that has a full adaptation.
Yeah.
Not a partial, like, incomplete adaptation.
Completed.
Full, completed, remake, modern adaptation.
Technically, it has two, because it has one up to a point that has its own non-canonical ending, and then a second one that follows the manga canon.
There's something here I'm not seeing, and I know it. So I want to ask you, like, why do you love this series so much? Knowing that you love the series and not trying to disparage that at all.
So first of all, this isn't a harem. Not in my opinion. Not based on, like, what I would think of when I think harems. Because she does not have, 4, 5, 6 men lining up, all trying to woo her. In reality, the only actual love triangle going on here is between Yuki, Kyo, and Toru. Right? And it is not necessarily the main focus of the story, in my opinion, at any point. And Yuki and Kyo are kind of, like, we don't even start the story with them realizing that they like Toru, and she is so fucking dumb that she definitely doesn't realize. So this is not intentional on any of the three characters' parts. The three of them are just chapter by chapter, like day by day, growing closer to one another and kind of learning about one another, and thus, like, some form of triangle romance is forming, right? Where both of the boys like her, and she likes both of them, but not all in the same ways, right? Because there are no other... That's it. This is not a harem, in my opinion. I think it might seem like one.
I think it's because there is a... Harems traditionally have a bit of a... I don't... Like, an anti-climax on romance. Like... It is a romance, or it's playing at being one, but they don't. The characters never really do anything romantic, and this is just harems in general. And it's often like, oh, the characters are too stupid to acknowledge their feelings. So the fact that we're so early on here, it might just feel like that to me, and it might feel less like that as time goes on.
Yeah, no, because this story does have a penultimate romance, right? Like, things do happen in the end, all that goes down. And I think the other thing is we've been introduced to such a wide range of characters, and of all the characters in the Zodiac we've met so far, only 2 of them have been female. The boar and the nervous bathhouse lady, who I cannot for the life of me remember. But so far, those have been the only 2 females. And I think that gives the perception of a bunch of men and 1 girl, but Ayame, Hattori, and Shigure are not part of the harem or romance because they're adult men with their own lives. Akito has no interest in her. Momiji and Hatsuharu are too young to really be part of it. So, I mean, by introducing them all like this, I suppose, it might look a little bit like, a girl with a bunch of attractive men around her, and she's stupid, but in reality, there are only 2 people actually participating in this love triangle.
that's where I do agree. Like this series, maybe it's not a harem, but it feels harem adjacent, at least with some of its tropes. So that might be where I'm getting caught up on. But even I recognize, because I have seen harem adjacent shows that aren't really harems, but they play with a lot of the same tropes as harems. That, like, as time goes on, like, no, this isn't a harem, but you see some of those tropes.
And then, I mean, maybe this is in retrospective for me, because so I've always really liked this series, even when I hadn't already. Like, when I first watched it, obviously I liked it because I kept watching and reading it. And so maybe part of this is retrospective, but obviously I was vibing with it even before the retrospective. Is I think that I like the subtle hinting going on about kind of the darker past that's hiding behind all of this, right? And the other thing I like is that in my opinion, if this were to be kind of like really trite and tropey, her goal would be to free them from the curse, right? Like, find out what happened and free them from the curse. But she's not actually doing that. That's not her intention. No one's expecting her to do that. No one even thinks she can. Like, she is literally just living her life in the situation she has been put into, making friends with this family. And I don't even think that she's making friends with it doesn't even, to me at least, seem like she's making friends with them because she's somehow special. It's that she's the only person that they've ever been in this close forced proximity with to, like, interact with, and she's genuinely a nice person. And so that kind of translates to, yeah, if you're interacting, living with a person who's really nice, and considers you a friend, obviously you're not going to push them away after a certain amount of time. Like, eventually you're going to let them in, and you're going to actually develop a deeper relationship, whether that be platonic friends or romantic partnerships. And so I just, for me, I never really associate this with a harem, in my opinion, because it's never been one to me. It's a love triangle, and I don't love those, but I get it, the way that it's playing out. And then second of all, I really like that she's not expected to fix a bunch of problems or anything like that, and it's just that she is being herself. And, like, she's just a nice person, And they don't get to interact with people outside of the family very often, and they've been put in this kind of unique situation that's causing it to happen, That's kind of spurring the interaction that is making them fond of her and her fond of them. I think it also could have happened in a house full of women if the same situation was happening.
I don't mean to, like, pressure you into, like, having to defend the harem aspect, because even I can recognize that this series, what might feel like a harem in this introductory phase, it's not a harem. I can recognize that.
I also, I'm going to be honest, I like the wide cast array, because I feel like every person we've met kind of brings a different perspective to the events that are affecting their lives, Like, each of them have their own personal tragedies and victories. And I kind of like seeing that, because some of their stories are heart-wrenchingly sad, Like Hattori and Momiji.
Earlier you said you didn't want to be too retrospective. I kind of want you to be retrospective here. Like, I kind of want to, like, maybe not don't spoil anything, obviously, but I do kind of want to know, like, if it's not in here, like...
In retrospective, it's the Soma curse and Akito. It's that. It's the darkness that they've been hinting at. The rules they have to follow. The fact that Hattori had to brainwash his fiancé, The fact that Momiji's mother isn't allowed to know who he is anymore because it broke her mind that Yuki's being locked in cages because Akito feels like it. It's that. It's that storyline playing out over the rest of the series for me.
And does that become more prominent as time goes on?
Yeah, that's the entire. That is the bulk of the series after all the characters are introduced and established. You literally saw the first part of it here when Akito confronts Toru and Yuki. Like, that is the beginning of it. And then things like Hattori's backstory, that's just showing how this has been a thing that has been perpetuated, right? Like, it's ongoing in the background. Like, this is what's happening in this family, and as we get closer to this family via Toru and her involvement, we get to start seeing what's happening in this family, and it is not a pleasant and positive thing. Like, horrible things are happening.
I think,
and Akito is the key to all of it.
Yeah, I think just where this volume, where so far I'm having the disconnect here, is this is my reading, hearing that now. It's that Toru's not a very, and you said you like this aspect of the series. I, at least at this point in the series, I kind of disagree. Toru has things happen to her. She doesn't. She's not a very proactive character.
No, she doesn't go out of her way to be nosy or anything. The only thing she goes out of her way to be is kind.
So, when these kind of vignettes happen, I don't want to say it tickles the same spot, but it like scratches at the same scar, maybe, that's left by like, what is that one series we watched on the channel?
Bofuri?
No. The gods and that one girl who stumbles in.
Kamigami no Asobi?
That one. It scratches the same scars or the same scabs that left, where, oh, look at this boy that you are currently living with's tragic backstory that will... It's a thing. And it's kind of one-offish.
But it's a thing.
I know it's a... You said it's going to be more of the point of the story as time goes on.
It's one of the things that I had it's so odd watching the original anime to the new anime, which is canonical, because the way that the original splits it and the canon is in the non-canon ending to like the 2001 anime or whatever. Akito is a different gender. Like, just revealed to be a different gender. And the ending is more intensely focused on Kyo and his place in the Zodiac, whereas the manga ending manages to act, like, obviously because it's got the manga behind it, it's the Akito and the curse and Kyo and how this is all kind of playing out and why the family is structured the way it is.
It's almost like two fucking routes to a visual novel. Jesus
it really
fuck.
is.
Yeah, the Akito and the Kyo route.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is I'm not saying that, like, Kyo's the final end couple. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that, like, the way that the two anime have ended, right? Like, one to the manga, one to non-canon, it was incredibly different. And so, like, I'm glad that they redid it, because I didn't love the ending to the original one, because I felt like it kind of cheapened what they were... Because they included, like, all the hints at, like, the horribleness of, like, the family and Akito, and then they kind of didn't get to follow through on that, because obviously it ended early and non-canon. But now we get an ending that does follow through on this. So I feel like, as is in the vein of many older manga, because a lot of older manga ran for longer periods than some modern manga, they spent a lot more time developing, like, introducing characters and stuff before they really got into the heaviest parts of the plot and the meat of the plot. And I mean, retrospectively, like, obviously I can see what's happening. Like, I saw Shigure being outcast from the family for reasons. I can see, like, Hari's tragic backstory, Momiji's horrible backstory, Akito's threats to Yuki and why Yuki doesn't want to go back home. Like, I get it. But, like, I've already seen it. So, like, obviously I'm picking up on those little cues and being like,
But you can understand where I'm coming from here, right?
Especially in book 2. Yeah. Because this really is just a bunch of meetings with other characters.
Yeah.
And, like, learning a little bit about them and then moving on.
Which does feel like the typical, like, playbook of your average reverse harem anime.
Yeah. And maybe if we'd read it closer to book 1, then you would have been able to, like, relate maybe back to some of that stuff, like the Hattori.
Yeah, it's again where I'm like, there's a lot of factors here, including distance from book 1, me having distance from memory, because I kind of forgot about his mother little plot line, and I remember liking that aspect, now that you mention it, but I'm kind of removed from that, so it didn't immediately click.
Yeah. So I think, I understand that. I think keeping that in mind, obviously, we kind of talked and we made a decision that we do need, I need to stop being so possessive over what Nick Nack is reading and, like, forcing him to read a bunch of, like, manhwa, like, really, in, like, really short stints. So we're definitely going to be following up on Fruits Basket several more times this year. Probably once a month or once every other month we'll put out a Fruits Basket episode, because I have all the volumes with me.
If you can keep me on something, it's easier for me to remember, follow along the plot lines. Otherwise, I have to kind of take it as either what I'm given in that volume, which, if it's presented like arc by arc, can be fine, like, or if it's a series we're keeping up with consistently, like Frieren.
Or Solo Leveling.
Yeah. But here it's like...
It's been so long.
Yeah.
And you've not seen the anime.
And this isn't like a solid arc here, so it's not like I have a self-contained story to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that makes sense. Does my explanation make sense?
Oh, absolutely. No, that's why I asked it. Like, I knew I was going to come into this conversation asking that, because I'm not coming into this acting like Fruits Basket isn't one of the most acclaimed manga and anime of all time.
Acclaimed shoujo manga and anime of all time, because that is its niche, is the shoujo.
Even beyond that, though, like,
it's really popular.
It's got acclaim, like, beyond just its genre.
Yeah, the fact that it and Shaman King and Rurouni Kenshin were the things to get full remakes.
Yeah.
That says something about those 3 series and how much people love them. You know?
Like, this isn't random villainess manga that you had me try that you maybe read once and one time before.
Yeah.
This is like an all-time classic to a lot of people. So, regardless of how I feel about this reading, there is something probably there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's obviously, certainly, an element of it being a shoujo manga with a bunch of hot males in it, but, you know, any shoujo manga is going to have.
Okay, but, like, normally when that's the case, I hear more about that. Like, with Ouran High School Host Club, I know that's expressly the purpose of that anime.
Yeah, whereas here, there's a bunch of, like, attractive men, but it's not the purpose of the anime, which is nice. It really is. You have to admit, that's super nice. Even I like that. I'm just like, because I can, you know. And as I have grown up, I have changed, you know, who I like in the series. I'm like, I am now an adult myself. I can no longer like these teenage characters. Hatere, Shigure, Ayame, older people. You know, a little bit for everyone. But yeah. Also, this is fucking hilarious that Hatsuharu just looks like a delinquent high school student. He is dead ass in middle school. They're like, ooh, is he gonna ride away on his motorcycle? Whips out a fucking bicycle with a bell. That was a little funny. Yeah.
He's got that Prince of Tennis syndrome.
He really does. Oh my god. Just the looking like a whole ass high schooler at the age of middle school. No, because he's still in elementary middle.
He's got super Prince of Tennis.
Okay, him and Momiji, I think they're in either... Yeah, the last year of middle school, because they're entering high school next year, I think. So the last year of middle school, which technically means that they would be like high school freshmen for us. But still. High school freshmen looking like a 18-year-old street delinquent.
Not like someone whose balls have only half dropped.
I don't know. The class president was pretty... I don't think that's a problem he has. Like, so we'll be back with more books to read next time. Let us know how you feel about Fruits Basket. Did you watch the original anime? Did you watch the new remake? I have. Have you read the series? What are your opinions on it? Is Knick Knack entirely wrong? I'm kidding.
Did I not just spend the entire thing saying I know I'm wrong here?
I'm kidding.
No, you're not kidding, because I am wrong. But also, did I not make that apparent yet?
No, not clear enough. Stab yourself. That was on me. I did that. I apologize.
Am I even in
yes,
frame right
now? Yes, you are. Very
Am I
much.
a little off-center here?
That's the same place you were at before. You're good. I just wasn't thinking. I'm sorry. Alright, we'll see you next time for another one of these.